Anyway, these fluorescents are really something. Ah, that's a little better. Do we have, yeah, okay, let there be light, but this is just a bit much. Okay. All right, everybody, well, that's the direction. That's the direction we're moving. What I'd like us to be able to do now is to just stand and give our name and where we're from. We always do this without elaboration. We don't have a lot of time, and then you can all get to meet each other over lunch and discuss interesting astrological matters that will reveal your identity even to yourself. It can happen. So I'd like let's start with our team of astrologers, who they are and where they're from, if you will be so kind.
I'm Lawson Bracewell, and I am from Christchurch/Akaroa, New Zealand.
I'm Kathy Newbern, and I'm from New York City.
Jan Dietrich, and I'm from Philadelphia.
Francis Arnold, and I'm from Santa Fe, New Mexico, USA.
Gail Allison, I'm from Florida.
Okay.
Gail Demetra from San Diego, California.
You're going to be an astrologer with us. Fantastic. Okay. That'd be marvelous. All right.
Okay. Peter Gabaska from Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
Elena Dramcini, Slovakia.
From Sweden.
Okay. David?
Dave Walters, Cincinnati, Ohio.
Via Vulcan. And Michael Robbins from Finland, the United States. And if there's something you don't know about yourself, these are the people to seek out. You see, they have all the knowledge, all the secrets, right? Maybe I exaggerate just a little. Okay. All right, so let's just start over here and introduce yourselves. Just stand up and say hi, okay? Go ahead. Yes.
Robin Canitas, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Kathy Maker, Phoenix, Arizona. Lori Benton, Mesa, Arizona.
Karen Gritzka, Portland, Oregon.
Brent Stewart, Seattle.
Michelle Linden, Los Angeles.
Joseph Dudley from Tempe, Arizona.
James Cesar, traveling in Western United States.
Malia Helson, London, Ontario, Canada.
Cristina Amaral from Brazil. And Cristina Villeneuve from Tucson.
Roxanne Schaefer from San Diego.
Venus.
Right. There's always got to be one, you know. We like our Venus representation.
I'm Giselle Grabowski from Seattle.
Brett Mitchell, Arizona.
Michael Phoenix Crowd, Arizona.
Basil Lisa.
Karen Johansson from Seattle, Washington.
Sheldon Hughes, Northern California.
Brandon Robbins from Cottonwood, Arizona.
Alina Bach Hughes from Northern California.
Eva Smith from Toronto, Canada.
John Mazur from Bay City, Ohio.
I'm Alexander Ichuk from Brooklyn, New York, and from Ukraine.
And you too.
Rose Bates from California, Illinois.
Olivia Hampton from Denver.
All right. Is that everybody? Have we gotten everybody? There'll be more with us, I know. But all right, we're good. So now what we're going to be doing over the next approximately 1 hour, about one hour, is we're going to look at the planets Mars and Neptune. We're going to look at the general context in which they function, and then after our little break, you will be getting into small groups with our astrological team. So every member of the astrological team will be working with a few people. I will have your horoscopes here. Matter of fact, why not give them out now? Now, I don't have horoscopes for everybody because I didn't know you were all coming. But I will have a printer here shortly, probably after the break, and I will print out your charts. And so if I've missed, 5 or 6 of you somewhere along the line, you will have your charts. So what I'd like, BL, will you help me with these? I've also printed out charts for the astrologers themselves in case they've forgotten who they are. Here is your chart, BL. Okay, Maria Cristina Amaral. You have 2 kinds of charts. One is your natal chart, and Keith and Roxanne, I'll get yours, Helena. Rose, I have yours. Tanya Belfort. Some of these people are in the ceremonial class, and they'll be coming in later. So you won't have everybody. Claire Bainan, not here yet. Bob Basil. Save the charts. Don't throw them away if there's nobody here to claim them. They will come. Eva Correct Smith. So you got corrected again. Myrna, she's in the other group. Gail Dimitrov. Francis Donald, I know you haven't forgotten who you are. You've got Leo rising. It's okay. Maria Christina Donahue. Did I do something wrong? Linda Ebola? Any Linda Ebola? She might have been here last year. Some don't return. Giselle? Right. There you go. Thank you, Giselle. Karen? Okay. Olivia? Sandra Harrison? Malia? Now, if I've made a mistake, I'll correct them. Sheila is not here. Sheldon Recht Hughes. Kathy Hunter, anybody? Butner, right there. Karen Johansson? Judy Foster, anybody? Okay. Who would like to be a part-time secretary for me for a short time? Don't all volunteer at once. Okay, what I need is the list of people who have not gotten charts, their name, date, serial number, whatever. Terrible. These people are not, they're in the other group, I think, or not quite, or doing other things. They'll be coming along. Some of you have not got your charts, so want to have a chart for everybody, and I'll work on it rapidly. So that while you are in your groups, remembering who you are, I'll be trying to print out your charts, if possible. Do you have a chart, Eleanor?
I don't need one, Michael.
When I came to you and Nicholas, I almost printed, but I said, no, don't do it. All right. So, we've got about an hour here. You all know what Mars looks like? Let me draw it in the air, Circle, arrow, right? Everybody knows that? And Neptune looks like a pitchfork, a trident. Okay. All right, let's just see. Let's hope and pray. How about? Now, if you do not have a chart, Michelle, I can print yours up easy. I have it. But tell Karen Johansson that you don't have a chart. And if I don't have your name, your place, your date of birth, your time, give it to her. Michelle, I have yours. Let's see, who doesn't have charts? Okay, Joseph, I have yours somewhere. David, okay, Alexander, is it? Yes, I should have it from last year. But just give your name to Karen. and we'll be printing here. Anybody else that does not have a chart? Okay, Roxanne and Keith. Keith, I have yours. Roxanne, I don't. So I'll need your data. Just give it to Karen over here. Okay, now. Oh, wait a second. What's in this black box? You know I've got cancer. You see this? This is the laser from the previous solar system. You know what I mean? Most of us use lasers from the coming solar system. Very few of us use lasers that are blue. This is one you can't look at in the eye, you know. All right. Okay, friends, first of all, I'll just preface this by saying that this is not the last word, all right? But this is meant to get us thinking. That's the point. And I'll ask our, I think we have, let's see, what do we have? We have lunch at 12:30. We have a 10-minute break at 11. Then we have 1 hour of group discussion of your charts, at which time, if I can have some strong, able-bodied person come with me to carry a printer from over there to here, we'll get this stuff done, okay? Vision and idealism, channels for spiritual fire. There's all kinds of fires. Fire is the essence of everything. And these two planets carry their own special kind of fire. It is a fiery ray, the sixth ray. Sometimes it's considered watery, but essentially it's fiery. There is destruction and purification, first by water, then by fire. We always have to pass through the water first and then through the fire, although in this case, we have a bit of a reversal because Mars is the non-sacred planet and Neptune is the sacred planet. So Mars is a planet which is not yet even as sacred as is the Earth, which is almost a sacred planet, and Neptune is ever so much more sacred. Neptune is perhaps the most powerful solar fire planet in our entire solar system. It has a very strong sixth ray, but more essentially it is on the second ray in its monadic nature. DK gives it to us, and he calls it its esoteric ray. Watch that word esoteric. Maybe, do you want a little more light, or are you okay? There. I mean, okay? All right. So there are a number of kinds of fire, and the reason we're interested in it is because fire is the great transformative agent. And I suspect everybody here would like to be transformed one way or another, wouldn't you? I know I would. I mean, I'm not content to be the way I am. I have a whole lot of divine discontent. What about you? Well, I call it divine. Anyway, it's just discontent. Anyway, so this divine discontent is peculiarly Neptunian, and it always leads you beyond your present boundary into a new sphere of possibility. And I think we all want those new spheres because, you know, essentially we know we are the Spirit, we know we are the whole thing, we know that one day the one identity will be realized within us, and we don't want to be always limited by these tiny rings past not, which hold us in particular type of experience. Sometimes it seems for too long. Well, especially at times like this, when there is all kinds of possibility for growth and expansion and cooperation, we want to move beyond those rings past not, and Mars and Neptune will help us do that. So in our makeup, we have three kinds of fire, really. Fire by friction, which is very Martian, solar fire, which is more Neptunian in a way, and electric fire of the Spirit, which is correlated quite a lot with the planet Uranus. DK calls it the home of electric fire. So we're considering the sixth ray today in relation to Mars and Neptune, and we'll deal largely with the lower two fires, the fire by friction of your personality, and the solar fire of your soul. And we had that kind of meditation so we could focus on the kind of division, the Geminian division, which exists within us and which we're trying to put together. There is a final and fiery immolation. You know, immolation means you sort of burn up, you know. And, of course, people are working it out in a literal sense, and I don't know how they do that, but, you know, they're making a point for sure. There is a fiery immolation or ascent which liberates us from the material sphere. This is the ultimate function of the sixth ray. It's a liberating ray, At first, it very much binds us through the power of attraction and low desire into dense material fields with which we become to which we become attached, or to which we are so attracted we can't get loose. And the Buddha, we know, came to liberate humanity from the big D, which is desire. He looked at desire as such a confining situation and so imprisoning for humanity that he said, what can I do about this? And the Buddha had, we are told by the Tibetan teacher, a sixth ray mind. So his mind was absolutely focused on this factor of liberating from desire. We all have the sixth ray. We're just imbued in it. If we've had any incarnations during the past 2,000 years, and most of us have had a lot, we have been saturated with the sixth ray, and it's not over yet. You know, for 2,000 years, maybe more, we have been imbued by this particular ray and have learned what it means to raise our desire nature into a higher type of aspiration, which will allow us to change the structure, the material within our system, allow us to respond to higher vibrations, and in that way become more correlated with the divine whole. But in a larger sense, as I said, DK tells us that for another 21,000 years, in probably a planetary sense, the sixth ray will be with us. That's a long time. And that's part of a 44,000 year cycle or something, 40 or 44,000 year cycle connected with the fourth ray. So this whole language of the rays and their cycles is an amazing thing. And one day, when we know what it is to have atmic consciousness and possess what is called all knowledge upon the atmic plane, at least this science of cycles will be revealed to us. So this is the ray which is going out of incarnation from the soul perspective. And what this means, as I interpret it, you can go to Esoteric Psychology 1, page 226, it'll tell you about these cycles, that souls on the sixth ray will be quite rare during a certain interval. DK doesn't tell us what that interval is, but they will be abstracted probably to another globe or perhaps other chain, some subtle sphere where they are undergoing certain kinds of conditioning, reconditioning, and we are left free to pursue a different line of civilizational development without the pressure of souls upon the sixth ray. So many people who have been upon the sixth ray are transferring to the second ray at this time, or to the third ray. 2 times 3 is 6. It's very interesting, you know. There's a big relation between the ideas of the third ray and the idealism of the sixth ray, and also this connection between the expansive love of the second ray and the more focused devotional love of the sixth ray. So transferring is going on now. Otherwise, you go out of incarnation for a while and, you know, vacation on one of the other globes, and then you have to come back later, probably under the number 15. When DK describes the cycles of the sixth ray, he uses 150 years. He says, don't take this too literally, but he tells you about these 150-year cycles. It seems that the sixth ray is connected with 15, 150, 1,500, 15,000, and so forth. And by the way, 1 plus 5 equals 6, interestingly enough. Okay, so egos on this ray of devotion will not be born in great numbers, but there will be sixth ray personalities, and the sub-ray still exists. These are 7 dimensions, and you cannot have any life on this planet without all 7 dimensions being represented. Everything in 3-dimensional space is 3-dimensional, and you can't eliminate 1 dimension and say it's flat. Even if you draw a little square on a piece of paper, the graphite on it has the other dimension. So the sixth ray will always be with us, and we have it, and we should not shun it, which of course is a sixth ray term. Okay. And then we have the sub-rays as well. You know, many of us, you know, in the ashrams, if you think about that, suppose you're in the second ray ashram, which many people, you know, are verging towards over the years. There will be, you know, 2 sub 1, 2 sub 2, 2 sub 3, and eventually 2 sub 6, and so forth. In other words, the sixth ray will be with us, but that specialized pressure of fanaticism and narrow idealism and a fiery intolerance and all those things that are threatening to burn up the world right now, they will not be with us after a time. Now, the idea is, I think DK said that, if you read that page 26 again, by the year 2030, if you take him literally, the sixth ray will be out of in 2130, we got 100 years of, okay, 2130, the sixth ray will be out of incarnation, and by the end of this particular century, Pisces, the Piscean influence will be out of incarnation. So in connection with the sixth ray, we ask ourselves, what do I desire? To what or whom am I devoted? You know, devotion gets a bad rap, but I'm remembering that one of these people in the discipleship in the New Age books, he had a lot of third ray and a lot of sixth ray. And so he thought to himself, oh, it's my mind that has brought me to the masters. So Master DK said to him, look, it's not your mind that brought you to us, it's your devotion that brought you to us. So we should not, you know, play small on that. For another 15,000 years, we have this sixth ray very powerful, and devotion is much needed. And he said the sixth ray workers are really needed because if you talk about lifting the desires of the masses into a level of aspiration, how else are you going to do it? You've got to motivate people. And we see, you know, that is being done today. It's dangerous, but it's being done. Okay. So what do I aspire? What are the ideals that I yearn for and am willing to fight for because Mars is the Lord of fight? And what are the visions which inspire me? Those kinds of questions we're going to ask ourselves. You know, if you get a hold of your own inspiration, your idealism as it leads to inspiration, it can take you far. Master Moria said in one transport of art, you can go far beyond what he calls the cerebral sinuosity of the brain. I mean, you know, you need a brain too, right? Of course. But there's this idea of these great up-rushing streams of energy which can take a person far, even entering the stream at the second initiation. You're being borne along by this sixth ray current, and it helps you. So let us not shun this ray. Mars and Neptune rule the solar plexus of the human being, according to the Tibetan, in esoteric astrology. So the solar plexus is the seat of the fire of desire, the seat of fiery aspiration, and looking at it in two ways here, Mars rules all aspects of the personality. When you look at your elemental life, you know, your body, your emotions, your lower mind, and put it all together into your personality, Mars rules every aspect of that. The dense physical body and the personality and every aspect of the personality is ruled by Mars. So your life here on Earth has got a lot of Mars in it, and we have to tame Mars. If we don't tame Mars, you're going to go there. Well, that's what we're told. At the Judgment Day, 2/5 get abstracted and are taken off the Earth altogether, you know, maybe after going to another part of the Earth, but then eventually go for re-education to another planet. It'll probably be Mars because there are people who have the concrete mind overdeveloped or not developed enough, and Mars rules the concrete mind and the fifth ray from a certain perspective. So it's the selfish personality that Mars can rule in the lower sense. It also can rule the courageous and daring personality, which is what we need. Both Mars and the Moon are associated with the lunar lords, and these are the lower forms of elemental lives which have not yet become devas. So they are lower forms of life, and Mars and Moon are both connected with them. These lunar lords, which is what our personality is consisting of, have to be regulated and trained. And of course, Mars sometimes has the courage to do that. So many of the martial arts in which people are involved, and there's the word martial, of course, involve the training of the elemental lives so that they are properly regulated and will serve the will of the indwelling entity. Neptune is also ruling the solar plexus, but in a higher sense. For the advancing, aspiring man, the true aspirant or disciple, Neptune is the ruler, not Mars. Neptune is the planet of longing and yearning and reaching toward the transcendent and what is unattainable for us. It is associated particularly, in the negative sense, with glamours and confusions and illusions of the astral body. Should have added delusions too. But eventually it's also associated with a greater refinement. It is the most exquisite of the planets. It's the higher octave of Venus, just the way Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury. So everything that Venus has, Neptune has more of. Everything that Mercury has, Uranus has more of, in a certain sense. So it refines and beautifies and tranquilizes and sensitizes the astral body. And we need that. If we're ever going to pass the fourth degree, and most people who think they haven't, you know, in the Tibetan's discussions with his disciples, very few had passed the second degree, very few. They were aiming towards that degree in a life or a coming life or whatever, but they had not rendered quiescent the astral body and motivated it properly away from the normal desires. So that refinement comes in there with Neptune. Eventually, Neptune gives us aspiration for that which is truly transcendent. Christ-like love, divine beauty and harmony, that which has no boundaries and pervades all, cosmic love from what we can only call the cosmic astral plane without knowing anything about it, except that it's the source of true love. Now, all this is relevant to us, depending on how we want to live, see? Mars rules the lower point in the solar plexus. The Tibetan says there are 2 points within it. Neptune rules the solar plexus in general, and more the higher point correlated with aspiration. The downward part of the solar plexus, which is either aiming for low desire or horizontal desire on its own level, that's Mars. Neptune tends to elevate the energies towards the heart as an organ of identification and compassion. And finally, Neptune is also associated with the biggest or most important center in the middle of the head, or on the top of the head, called the major 12-petaled lotus. Neptune, who rules Pisces, these 12 petals, this is the major part of the head center, and this is identified, interestingly enough, with the monad or spirit. So this is your spirit, this is the Buddhic plane, this is the astral plane. These 3 parts Neptune rules, and there's a 6-4-2 connection with Neptune. These are things that are good to have in mind when dealing with these planets. Now, our solar system is said to have a greater proportion of Devic or angelic lives than human lives. There's a lot of mystery to these figures, but basically DK says there are 140 billion Devic units in our solar system, and I assume those are already self-conscious devas. That's what it seems to me. And only 60 billion human beings. We live in a very Devic solar system. It's called an astral-Buddhic solar system. It's got a feminine orientation at this time. Our Earth is in a masculine incarnation. Venus is in a feminine incarnation. I think our solar system, from a stellar point of view, is in a feminine incarnation. That's a speculation. Our solar logos has a very strong astral body, and hence the influence of Neptune is very, very strong. It's an undivided astral body. The mind is divided, the etheric physical nature is divided, but DK tells us that the astral body of the solar logos is unified. Our solar logos is a 2nd-degree cosmic initiate, and we've got tremendous emotional issues going on in our solar system, and especially on our planet, where our planetary logos has not mastered his own astral body yet. He's still a 1st-degree initiate in the cosmic sense. So our solar god is aiming towards cosmic mental polarization, the 3rd degree, but right now we're all emotional if we're in our solar system. So our problem, the major problem in our solar system and on our planet especially, is an emotional one rather than a mental one. Later it will become a mental issue. And we who think of ourselves as mentally focused people, we say, well, our issues are really mental. That's actually quite rare. Our issues have a lot of root in how we handle our emotions. And we just haven't really handled them yet. We may have suppressed them, we may have squelched them, we may have prevented them from expressing, but have we really transmuted our emotional vehicle? Well, when you use Mars, Pluto, and Vulcan to do that, and you raise Venus and Neptune up, and at the 2nd degree, there's a transmutation that occurs. So, okay, desire is the big thing. Now, I have to be careful. I know I'm talking rapidly, but you can have these notes if you like them. I'll be happy to send them to you. As I say, it's not the last word. It's just a springboard for some thoughts, okay? Mars, a non-sacred planet. It's less sacred than the Earth. It's less of a cosmic initiate. Earth is not yet a 2nd-degree cosmic initiate. We learn in Cosmic Fire, page 384. It's a nice page. And Earth is even less so. Well, I have conversations with people where we don't say anything. I say 384. He says, oh, yeah, 167. Well, okay. So this is kind of fun, but, it's a very in-joke. All right. So it's less of a cosmic initiate. It's associated with desire on the lower level. Desire, passion, conflict, aggression, and selfishness. Those are some nice, low Martian things, If you look at Rome, which was one of the places where cosmic evil made its attack, a very Martian civilization. Then, transitionally, with aspiration, devotion, and idealism, which can be lifted up, of course, to a third stage where we have warriorship, courage, bravery, and valor for the sake of ensuring that there is the right aspiration, right devotion, and right idealism. This is a planet on the sixth ray. Probably its personality is on the sixth ray, because planetary loci have rays just the way we do. And speculatively, some of us have been working on this. We feel that Mars has a sixth ray personality, perhaps a first ray soul, maybe a secondary monad on the fifth ray, since it rules all these fifth ray things, the senses, concrete things. It's even an orange planet, kind of interesting. And perhaps, ultimately, a major monadic ray, which is on the first ray, just like the Earth. There's a sense in which Mars, what is it, school for warriors or something like that? It trains you if you want to be a destroyer. And the teachers there wear red robes and carry black ebony wands. Now, wouldn't you like to have a teacher like that? Okay, so because in the discussion of the teaching that goes on these different planets, DK tells us what the teachers are like. And this is a pretty strict group, okay? So, you know, it's, yeah. When you read about the Navy SEALs and the Green Berets and, you know, the gladiators and all the rest, this is all into Mars. Now, take out your memory. I mean, you know, whatever you remember of your horoscope, we're going to go down the list. I've got some suggestions here about, now some of you may say, oh goodness, I've never even looked at my horoscope, I don't know what it is. Is there anybody like that? Okay, you can volunteer or not volunteer. But anyway, what I did here was give a kind of a sense of how the sixth ray can be used when you have the planet in a particular sign, or maybe a particular house. Here I focus more on the sign, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and so forth. So all of you will know who has Mars in Aries. Okay, that's okay, very good. It's a nice position for dancing. It really is. It gives a lot of energy. Lower Mars in Aries, the violent energizing of all the elemental lives, you know, riding off in all directions at the same time and just out of control, berserk. But it's that huge energy. What are you going to do with it? Unbridled desire and passion. You know, Saturn falls in Aries, so there's not enough discipline. But later, if you're going to respond, you know, in your response to Mars in a higher way, courageous, this is wrong. Courageous divine to one's, what am I doing here? Devotion. Oh, when I think of devotion, I think of divine. Okay, all right, devotion. That's right, you are right. Courageous devotion to one's higher ideals, willingness to fight valorously for those ideals. Okay, this is a real controlling of the energy, and it's a very first ray, sixth ray frontal attack on all that is desired. It's got a lot of bravery connected with it. So you have to decide. As I went along, I started adding more, but this was in the wee hours of the night, so just live with this for the moment. I don't have much time. Mars in Taurus. Who has Mars in Taurus? Okay. Lower Mars in Taurus. The aroused physical instinctual life. You know, it's the bull, which is just wanting to satisfy all of those desires that are inherent in the body. Physical desire, devotion to the lower passions. Now, you know, he says, let struggle be undismayed in connection with Taurus, and he says you add Mars to that, it just increases the conflict. The lower nature is really the bull that is against the bull of light. But if you lift it to the higher level, devotion to the light of knowledge and of wisdom, courage in pursuit of the great light. So once Mars in Taurus gets moving, it fights for greater illumination, and it lifts all the energies up into the third eye and towards the illumination that is possible within the head. Who has Mars in Gemini? Okay, some do, and maybe some don't know, but you'll find out later, right? Lower Mars in Gemini, desire for mobility, frictional interaction between the pairs of opposites, conflict in the field of mind and speech. You know, give me a good debate, give me a good argument, let me argue with myself if I can't argue with anyone else. These are the conflicts that occur between the opposites, between the two brothers, between the soul and personality. It's a frictional interaction. But later, we go on, and I've left out the transitional phase, because probably most of us are transitional. You know what I mean? Did you ever feel transitional? Okay. Depends on the day, doesn't it? Okay, here's Mars in Gemini. Aspiration for learning, courage in pursuit of knowledge, idealization of the mind, sharpening the mind. This really makes a person who can use the concrete mind in a way to bring truth, because they will allow fire by friction to operate in a clarifying manner. So this is very good for acute, astute thinkers. All right, Mars in Cancer. Does anybody have it? Admit it. Okay. Okay. Only one admits. All right. More have than admit. It's the fall position of Mars, right? Devotion to the form, devotion to the physical family, more. Divisive emotional reactions, divisive. Emotional defensiveness, Get away from my astral body, And fight for survival and for self-protection. So it makes a very good defender in a certain way, but there's a lot of turmoil. It's the sort of ulcer position. Higher Mars in Cancer, devotion to the larger family of humanity, courage in the act of protection, idealization of wholeness or integrity. The whole is seen as one in Cancer, struggle towards wholeness and integrity. So these are people who are fighting. See, with Mars, you always fight your way forward. You fight your way into a greater state of realization and wholeness. Of Cancer, it is told, the whole is seen as one. Well, how are you going to get there? See, so Mars will always go through the obstacles that prevent you from achieving those things. There are many ways. Mars is not the whole way. Who has Mars in Leo? Okay. Devotion to one's own little self. Is that to the point? All right. But in a way, we're all devoted to our little self until we've overcome Mars, period. At the second initiation, you kind of overcome some of the selfishness of Mars. At the third initiation, a big fight, and you overcome a lot of Mars. So by that time, Mars, it says that what does it say? That the ancient dominance of the threefold personality is ending at that point, something like that. Assertive selfishness, personal dominance, I'm better because I'm me, okay? Imposing oneself on others. I oftentimes call it the commander. It's a kind of a military position. It's the authority of the lower ego. But higher Mars in Leo, it's a great thing. Struggle towards individual authenticity, courage, bravery, fiery aspiration towards the realization of the higher self, being the soldier of the king. The king is the soul, you're the soldier. You're the soldier of the higher self. Warrior on behalf of the expression of the soul. So you see, over many, many lives, these things can change in their orientation. How are you going to do it? That's the question. Are you going to exert your choice when it comes to how you will wield these energies? Or do you just let it happen? All right, moving on. Mars in Virgo, lower activity. Lower part. Activity within the material sphere. It is said of Virgo, let matter reign. The only thing that's real is what you see. All this tangible stuff, this is reality, nothing else is real. Passionate materialism, a vision of material perfection. That's not a bad thing, except there's so much skepticism involved with this particular position. But if you lift it up, you get aspiration and struggle towards purification. Very important. Practical ideal, just imagine, a sixth ray planet in a sixth ray sign, Virgo. So we have a lot of practicality from Virgo and idealism from both of them. Practical idealism, fight. Always there's fight and struggle and contest in Mars. Fight for the birth and expression of the Christ consciousness in matter. Because in Virgo, the Christ emerges from matter, from the mother, the Christ, the Son emerges, and you have to strenuously apply yourself with all kinds of disciplines to make sure that that happens. The techniques for overcoming the inner foe, and I emphasize the word techniques here because Virgo is the master of techniques. Okay. Oh, okay. Talking fast enough, getting there. Mars in Libra. Who has Mars in Libra? Wait, I forgot to ask who has Mars in Virgo. Okay. All right. Well, I don't know if you recognize yourself, but you can tell me later. All right. Mars in Libra. Lower Mars in Libra, DK calls it unbalanced fiery passion, passion for physical union. So it is the sex impulse, and it's out of control, but that took place many petals ago, so don't worry about it. Conflict in the field of relationship, conflict with the law, law, sex, and money. All of these things where people are supposed to get along and have to make a contract, Mars is causing friction. So you see you see a lot of crusaders here, social crusaders, and that's maybe the good part. Devotion to right human relationships, idealizing justice and fairness, aspiration and struggle for something that I left out in the morning. What would that be? I mean, fairness, justice, the right, In other words, these people that really, well, it's social justice is really what it boils down to, I think. Aspiration and struggle for social justice. Okay, excuse me, I want to type here. Who has Mars in Libra? You got to be fair. It's called also the battle between the sexes, Mars and Libra. Okay, social justice. All right, Mars in Scorpio. Who has Mars in Scorpio? It's the powerful position, right? Okay, it's a tough position, and it's a good one. Passion to fulfill the instinctual tendencies of the dweller on the threshold. In other words, I am the dweller, and I want to have a good time. I'm going to fulfill myself. So all the 9 heads of the Hydra are released to fulfill themselves, and the person can be pretty unpleasant. Militancy in pursuit of one's lower desires, war against one's higher tendencies. Obviously, that's many petals ago for the people here, but it can be a very tough position. The higher Mars in Scorpio, the ideal of spiritual conquest, idealizing the inner battle. In a way, we hear so much about jihad, these days. The real jihad is the inner jihad, and it's a very scorpionic thing. You're fighting against your own enemy. Aspiration and struggle towards spiritual victory, the courage to prove one's inner attainments on the physical plane. Because on the outer level, everything you are as a human being has to be proved in Scorpio. Right down here on the physical plane, it's one of the triple signs. You have to make it appear. So this is a very warlike position, but the ideal is the victory and the conquest of the soul and spirit over the lower factors. So I wouldn't mind having this position in my next life. I'm ordering it now. Okay. Mars in Sagittarius. Who has Mars in Sagittarius? Get on your horse and ride out of this room. Anybody? Okay. Okay. Oh, you have it right. You have it in the 7th house too, don't you? You have it very angular. Passion for animalistic satisfaction, this is the lower part, unrestrained pursuit of material desire. The sacral center is very involved, the solar plexus is very involved. This is like the whole personality is one pointedly desiring its particular objectives. In other words, it one pointedly pursues its own satisfaction. I remember we had, it's very centaur-like in a way. Yeah, and I remember once we were having you were there, was it New Zealand? We had a final meeting of an esoteric psychology class, and a whole soccer team was under us. And they were very centaur-like, but we persisted somehow. Higher Mars in Sagittarius, strong idealism, fighting to fulfill a high vision, the Don Quixote position. The ideal of always going beyond the containing ring past not, explore, it's the explorer of the higher dimensions, keen aspiration and idealism reinforced by such a 6-ray combination. 6-ray Mars, 6-ray Sagittarius. So there's the quest, the vision quest, the courage to go on the quest. This is one of the big Mars in Sagittarius things. Matter of fact, I want to write that down, if I may. All right, but I wish to type faster to go on the spiritual quest. Okay, Mars in Capricorn, who has it? This is the exalted position, Mars in Capricorn. Let's see. Okay. Well, he says India has suffered from Mars in Capricorn. It's been a constant battleground. India ruled in the personality by Capricorn. Desire for material satisfaction, and it's a very hard-bitten desire too. Warring to rule and control. Fight to fulfill one's selfish ambitions. Forceful imposition of oppressive materialism. In other words, this is a really, put people down kind of thing. I'm the boss, I'm the king of the mountain, and you are less, and I will force my way upon you. It's very draconian in a way in the early days. Then comes the transition that we're all in, and finally we reach aspiration and struggle towards the mountaintop, bending all of one's forces in a very disciplined manner towards spiritual attainment. It takes a lot to get to the top of the mountain. Mars in Capricorn can help you get there. It gives you the strength to climb against gravity, to fight your way to the top. And you have to fight within to get to the top, of course. Who has Mars in Aquarius? No one? Just me? Oh, let's go to the good part. All right. Okay. Lower, no fair. Lower Mars in Aquarius, scattered desires. Let desire and form be ruler. Hyperactivity, overactive nervous system. Wait. Well, what else can you do? There's no one here with Mars in Aquarius. Come on. Okay, there we go. But you count too, you know. All right. Rebellion against authority, overthrow, even if authority is good and spiritual. Revolution without a just cause. Domination by unaccountable elites. Well, in other words, you know, not all Aquarius is good. You know, Aquarius can be the small groups that control everything from a high and distant position. So they're not necessarily accountable. We have a lot of that today. We've had a recent vice president who was an Aquarius. Okay. Now, the higher part of it, aspiration and struggle towards group consciousness and group creativity, passionate pursuit of that which is progressive, the ideal of liberation. Liberation is connected with Aquarius, isn't it? What do we have on the fixed cross? Blinding light, fiery pain, bitter woe, and yet the cross of liberation. Right, okay. Fighting for the new. All right? These are just seed ideas. But, you know, Mars in Aquarius tends to scatter its energy all over the place. It's got to learn to focalize it, but it's very idealistic because Aquarius is an idealistic sign. All right, going on. Mars in Pisces. Anybody have that? Okay. This is an interesting stealth and subterfuge. I mean, it would make a very good sniper or assassin or something of that nature, where in a very quiet way you wield a lethal weapon. Devotion, however, to glamours, idealizing unrealities, fighting for fantasies. Well, you know, not all is real in Pisces at first, is it? It takes a while before Pisces gets real, doesn't it? You know, it takes a good dose of Virgo to make Pisces real. Higher Mars in Pisces, fighting for the underdog, the ideal of salvation, the Salvation Army. It's perfect, isn't it? Pisces salvation, Mars the army. Courage and valor in the acts of rescue and redemption. I've seen a lot of people with a strong savior complex idealizing the salvation aspect. Are there any questions about Mars? It's all clear. I shouldn't have said anything. It's all clear. Okay. Yes?
Would this also be true of house positions? For instance, if you have a first house Mars, it would be Aryan in its quality?
You know, I've thought about that. I've thought about that one. I don't know if the energy itself comes in per se, but the area the energy usually focuses on comes in. In other words, selfhood is one of the things that Aries usually focuses on, and the Mars would be applied to that area of being, selfhood, body identity. So it might not carry the particular quality of Aries, but it would be in the area that Aries usually brings forward. Okay, all right. Now, look, unless you live to be 169, see, in other words, chances are that we will not have Neptune represented here in all the signs. Because we'd have to have, let's see, where's Neptune right now? Pisces? Pisces. So if we want, there's not going to be any Neptune and Aries people in this room right now. Or are you? If you are, you're crumbling, you know? Okay. You'd have to be about, or you're very ethereal. You'd have to be about 140 years old or 140 something, you know, and so it goes. But this is where what Francis said comes into it, because now we want to look at the house position, especially in relation to Neptune. So does everybody know what your Neptune looks like in your chart and what house it may be in, depending upon what house system we use? Neptune, I'm just making sure that I get done on time, okay? A very sacred planet, one of the three synthesizing planets, the elders of our solar system, you might say, deeply associated with the colors blue and rose. And interestingly, Master KH, it says that the devas he works with are blue and rose in color. Has a lot of astral connection. A planet of the sixth ray in its sole nature, but the foremost planet of the second ray, because it is the second ray monad, as I have said. Or at least he says that in Esoteric Psych 1. It's a very little reference, but he gives you the hint. Uranus is esoterically first ray, Neptune is esoterically second ray, and Saturn is esoterically third ray. So that's the 1, 2, 3 right there. Can somebody give me some water, please, before I expire? Okay. Strong associations with the fourth ray at the Buddhic level, which is the fourth plane, and the third ray ruling the ocean of matter, confusing everything, diluting, dropping the veils. Neptune has all of that third ray. And the first ray trident of Shiva is carried by Neptune too. So there's a first ray pralaic activity. Thank you very much, Sandra. When all things disappear, dissolve, destroy at the end, it's Neptune that's involved in that final pralaya in our solar system, I think. Maybe next solar system it will be Uranus, maybe. So anyway, let's look at negative Neptune. Even though it is maybe the most powerful planet in our whole solar system, and my friend Nicholas alerted me once to how blue it is, it's a very blue planet when the pictures are taken. Much more blue than the sort of turquoise effect we get with Uranus, isn't it? Have you seen those pictures? Yeah, Neptune, very blue, just radiantly blue. I love that blue. And then turquoise, more so for Uranus. Negative Neptune, many petals ago, of course. Delusion, confusion, indefiniteness, glamour, unreality, impracticality, false idealism, foolish devotions. Do we want to add anything to this? Addiction. Yes, I forgot about addictions. They're important. Okay, but they're coming down. Anything else? Addictions? It's that magnetic quality. You just can't release from it. And yet the interesting thing is later, Neptune is one of the great planets of release because you can slip out of any formal circumstance via Neptune. Well, you do that with drugs, music, or meditation, right? All right. Positive Neptune. Beauty, sublimity, selfless devotion, transcendental idealism, compassion, divine love, merging, fusing, identification. Do we want to add anything to this? I mean, that's a nice list. Those are nice things, but it takes a long time for Neptune to become the planet of pure reason. In the beginning, it's the planet of Maya and all kinds of dropping of the veils on reality. It hides reality in the beginning. All right, now, so this time, I say Neptune in the houses of the astrological chart, so Neptune in the first house or in Aries. But, you know, I kind of made a mixture here of whether they're in the sign or in the house. It's just an idea. All right, Neptune in the first house, who has that? Anybody? Okay. Delusional, glamorous hopes, expectations concerning one's own nature, unrealistic sense of self, confused self-image, or maybe a very mystical self-image. Higher Neptune, idealizing the higher self, envisioning one's higher identity, transcending the ordinary boundaries of the lower ego, identifying oneself with divine love, compassion, identifying, the power to identify. This is the big thing DK tells us to develop as an occultist, the power to identify. Neptune gives that to us. You merge within the other person, transcending apparent boundaries. He says, Christ in you, the pervading one, the one who knew what was in man because he was identified as all beings. That's first house. Second house, you make a good candidate for the IRS. Okay. Lower Neptune in the second house. Internal Revenue Service. Okay. Unrealistic hopes, dreams, wishes, longings concerning one's possession. Oh, I just have to have that. I have to have that. You know, it's just a fantasy about what you have to have. Unrealistic assessment and understanding of one's resources, and maybe, you know, an inflated sense of one's own self-worth. Other things we want to add to that? Neptune in the second house. It is a bit of confusion when it comes to dealing with the practical world. That's the negative part. The higher part, the idealistic use of resources, in other words, philanthropy, longing for transcendent wisdom and greater light, sublimation of the desire nature in the second house and in Taurus. So lifting the desire nature into a much higher realm. And, you know, sometimes people who make money through Neptunian factors, those are the more concrete things. But idealistic use of money, resources, energy, all those things. All right. Who has Neptune? Did I ask second house? Who has Neptune in the second house? I didn't ask. Does anybody know? Remember? Okay, you do too. Okay, okay. So, you know, normally, Neptune in the second house, you can say, my treasures are in heaven. Okay. Rather than on the earth. It's a good place for it. Neptune in the third house. Who has Neptune in the third house? Okay, some of us do. Good. Environmental confusion and disorientation, mental confusions and delusions, mental illness, a lot. Vague, imprecise communication, idealizing, unrealistic, glamorous knowledge. So, you know, say something to me straight. It's not a great position, but for an intuitive scientist, it'd be very good. The higher Neptune in the third house of Gemini, longing for transcendent knowledge, aspiration towards transcendental communication, telepathy, the fusion of the intuition and the concrete mind, very important. Third house is the concrete mind, and Neptune is the intuition, a vision of the pairs of opposites united, devotion to one's spiritual brothers and sisters. I have Neptune in the third house, so I thought I'd elaborate on that one. All right. Going on to the fourth house. Neptune in the fourth house. Anybody? Who has that? Okay. Well, you know, interesting situations at home. Adrift and confused within the elemental ocean. Longing for intimacy of a material and not a spiritual kind. This is in the early days. Devotion to one's near ones rather than to one's spiritual family. It makes for a lot of uncertainty in one's life until one discovers the spirit. You can have alcoholic parents, drug-addicted parents, or a musical family. You can have that kind of thing. The Neptunian factors are found at the base, but you can also get into the ashram. All right, let's talk about that. Idealizing one's home as in heaven. In other words, home is not here, home is in the heavenly worlds. Envisioning the ashram as home, idealizing ascent into less bounded spaces, those of the soul and the monad. Where is true home? This is the house of home. It's a higher level of vibration. So devotion to home is a spiritual state, envisioning undivided, unbounded wholeness. The whole is seen as one. So once you spiritualize your life, it's a good position. Neptune in Leo or now we're getting back into the 1920s, aren't we? Anybody here? All right. Neptune in Leo or the fifth house. Fifth house. All right. Devotion to one's own little self and its pleasures, led astray by the pursuit of pleasure, the glamour of personality, inflated idea of one's talents and creations. This is the early days. Leading to, eventually, petals later, creative imagination as it leads to intuition, the longing for true selfhood in the soul, the spiritual triad and the monad, idealizing universal selfhood, compassionately giving one's inner gifts, the gifts of the causal body and beyond. So these are transcendent gifts in the fifth house of your true selfhood, and they are compassionately and widely given to all, freely. All right, Neptune in the sixth house. Who has that? All right. Confused and deluded by the material sphere, engulfed by the testimony of the lower senses, adrift and disoriented in the material world, the glamour of material perfection. That was from the other one, I think. And there's also the question of sickness, you know, and surrender to sickness and surrender to imperfection. Neptune is a weak planet in some respects. It makes you vulnerable. Okay, but higher Neptune in the sixth house, aspiration towards the birth of the Christ in matter. As a mother of compassion, devoted to all life in form, psychometry, feeling the soul of matter, feeling into the material situation, always finding the soul there, idealizing the fusion of spirit and matter. Got it going on this one, oh my goodness. Devoted to contact with the anima mundi, the soul of the world, the soul of matter, transcendent realization of monadic service to all the lesser lives. The monadic plane is ruled by Virgo. Neptune is one of the monadic planets. The service of the spirit to all the tiny lives. This can be happening in the sixth house and also with Neptune in Virgo. Neptune in the seventh house, anybody? Okay. And in Libra, okay, or in Libra. Because now we're getting to the area where people can begin to, who has Neptune, by the way, in Virgo? Some people do, right? Because, you know, and we don't probably have Neptune in Leo group is probably dead. But the Neptune in Virgo group is here. And Neptune in Libra group is here. Okay, okay, Neptune in Libra. Okay, flower power. All right, here we come. Or in the seventh house. Nicholas had a question. Well, maybe not. We have only 6 minutes.
Yeah. I was just going to say that it could be worthwhile to also look at the position of Neptune in terms of the decanae of the sign. in order to give you a more qualified understanding of its position there.
All the signs speak through other signs, so the decanates are very, very important. It's a more complex study, but of course he's right. This is just superficial. This is just giving the initial idea. Okay, Neptune in Libra. Glamorous devotion in the field of relationships. You know, this is the search for soulmates and, you know, putting all your projections on the other person without realistically looking at who they are. So unrealistic assessment of the opposites or the partner, unrealistic idealization of the other, or just hoping they would be other than they are. So, you know, if you have Saturn there, you really look realistically at who is this person. If you have Neptune, you're wonderful. You know, so, and the second ray, if you had second ray plus Neptune there, you know, because the second ray types always inflate the value of their near ones. That's what DK says. They overestimate their near ones. Overestimation is a problem. Higher Neptune in the 7th house, devotion to right human relationships, selflessly giving oneself to produce right human relations, transcendental union with the divine partner or divine other. This is very good for fusion with your soul. Okay, moving right along. I'm just trying to give you a foundation here, and then you can, you know, when you talk about how this works out in your life, I'll send this to you, whatever, and all of your astrological mentors here know all this stuff already, so they can help you. Neptune in the 8th house or Scorpio. Who has it? Neptune in Scorpio or in the 8th house? Okay. All right. Delusion within the realm of the Hydra or the dweller on the threshold. You know, here every kind of addiction comes out. Desire and longing for all that is binding and addictive, death through lack of will. You just fade away and the whole Hydra suffocates you. It's pretty dramatic. There are other things that can be said. Higher Neptune, the ideal of transcendence over the dweller on the threshold. Intuition defeats glamour and illusion. The Hydra wilts, right, when you go to the Buddhic plane. Devoted to the process of transcending the limitations of death in all forms. Very powerful position. When Christ harrowed hell, that's Neptune in Scorpio. He went into hell, he redeemed those who could be redeemed, he rescued those who could be rescued, and the Lord of love went down into the lower myopic dweller realms and brought up to the light those who could be brought. And that's us. Okay, Neptune in Sagittarius or in the 9th house. Anybody? You have in Scorpio. Yes. He's my son, I should know. Okay. All right. Okay, Neptune in the 9th house. Lower Neptune, a delusional worldview, because this is where you form your great philosophy, in the 9th house. Longing for the remote and unattainable, misled by glamorous dreams. You know, the negative part of this is just there's no correlation between what you think the world is and what it really is. That's the negative part. So always the rose-colored glasses are laid over your view of the world. But let's go to the high stuff. Transcendental vision, devotion to contact and communication with the realms beyond, the ideal of a unitive philosophy, mystically identifyingly feeling that the whole is one and seeing it as one. It's a great transcendent vision. Can anybody identify with that? Okay. Neptune in Capricorn or in the 10th house? Okay. Some of us are young enough to have Neptune in Capricorn. Okay. Here we go. Lower Neptune, longing for egoistic satisfactions. Capricorn is one of the most proud and egotistical signs DK tells us, as well as one of the highest. Desire confined to satisfactions in the densely material realms. But now, if we go higher, idealizing transcendence through initiation. The initiator of the first two initiations is the Christ. He is Neptune. He is Vishnu. So there he is that's Christ as the initiator, devoted to spiritual attainments, envisioning achievements which are not of this world, advanced psychism. He tells us that even though Neptune falls in the sign Capricorn, it represents also an exaltation, very high psychic realization. All right. Anybody born with Neptune in Sagittarius, in Aquarius, if you are, you're a prodigy. Okay? All right. Neptune in the 11th house. Okay. Utopia. Here we come. Hopelessly utopian. Unrealistic visions of society, group glamours, and impractical service. We've just had Neptune in Aquarius. Have you noticed any of that during the last 7 years, 14 years? All right, but when we go higher, the ideal of universal service, devotion to service, the spreading of service far and wide, practical utopianism. So many people who wrote utopias had strong Aquarius. Sir Thomas More was an Aquarian. Who's the other one? Francis Bacon was an Aquarian. And I've wondered whether Plato did not have that as well. Okay, finally, or should we skip Pisces? All right, Neptune in Pisces, or, well, you have to be born now, so bring your kids, or in the 12th house. Glamour, delusion, and unreality. This is the most glamorous position you can possibly have. Prolaic disintegration, psychic vulnerability and surrender, mediumship, you know, who am I? I'm guided, I'm directed, I'm, you know, all the rest of it. But if we lift this higher, the ideal of universal compassion, the ideal of identification with all, the ideal of self-effacement and non-ego, devotion to the ideal of saviorship, devotion to oneness and the one. Very high consummatory things with the most powerful second-rate position you can possibly get is Neptune in Pisces.
And wouldn't that be transcendent?
Transcendent and transcendental, there are both. Did I misspell it?
Oh, did you have it? I didn't see it.
I sometimes use the word transcendent, which by that I mean the soul, and that I use the word transcendental, and by that I mean the monad. I use both. Are there any questions? It's 11:01. There's probably an announcement. Yeah. Almost. No questions? Are you sure? No questions? Are you ready for the test? Okay, now. Good, thank you. Now, may I have the astrologers come over here, please? I mean, I know you're all astrologers, but these are the teachers. This is your teaching team. Okay, just come over here. All right, and by the way, has everybody seen Karen Johansson, who has not got an astrological chart? Karen is over here. Raise your hand, Karen. Thank you. All right, this is the distinguished group of international esoteric astrologers. More could be said, much more, really. But these are the people you're going to be working with. So, if you'd be so good as to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. One has to go. Okay, 9. No, don't be silly. No, come on. No, seriously. No, come on. No, okay, what a discrimination. Anyway, what I'd like you to do is there's probably about 3 people who will work with each one of these people. Will you please choose the best looking person? And the one who has the one who has the most profound astrological knowledge, and decide that but this you have to decide by intuition, you see, and then just come and be with them. You have now a 14-minute break, and then you go into your groups and you discuss Mars and Neptune in your chart, whether your ideals are personality-based or soul-based, how to get soul-based ideals, visions, devotions out of those 2 positions. That's what you do. Okay, so come here and choose a person. If you choose the same one, we